Hi everybody, this is Nom Nom, and today I'd like to talk about trade and scams, sadly. The first part of the video is going to be about trade and how a typical trade interaction happens, basically, and what is called trade etiquette. So, because I've had this question several times, that people don't really know how to approach this, and they're a bit afraid to trade because they don't really know how it works, and they don't want to screw it up, I would say. So I'm going to show that in detail. It will be a short interaction, but just so everybody's on the same page. The second part of the video and main part of the video is going to revolve around current scams, so scams that are happening right now. As you will see, there are several types of scams, and it's a problem because in many cases they concern expensive items, and it's just people trying to take advantage of beginners or people who have a limited knowledge of the game or are not aware of some things that can be done, let's say. And usually because it's about expensive items, it means that you are potentially going to spend almost all your currency on this item, and then you get scammed, and basically you have nothing left, and it can turn into some kind of catastrophe for you. One thing I'd like to say, though, is that scams are still pretty rare, and they are, as we will see, they are kind of limited to certain specific items. I mean, there are many kinds, but I would say it's mostly about specific items, which means you are still very unlikely to be scammed when you play PoE. I've never had really this experience playing the game, so I have to say you shouldn't be at least afraid of that, and it should not prevent you from trading, because trade is a very important part of the game, and you should not be afraid of using the trade, basically, or using trade opportunities. But still, you should be aware that some fishy stuff might be going on. An example of a trade would go like this. You receive a whisper from somebody who wants to buy one of your items. So you press enter to get into the chat, right click, invite to party. The person is supposed to say yes. Typically, the buyer comes to your hideout, to the seller's hideout. So if you're buying, you go to the seller's hideout. Now, as you can see, there's a pink outline around the item that is for sale. So that's pretty practical to find it. Right click on the portrait, trade. Okay, you check the currency, it's the right amount. You have to mouse over the currency. Accept. Deal is done. Typically, you whisper back saying thanks for trade, like T40, something like this. And after that, you can leave the party, and the other player is supposed to leave your hideout, basically. Okay, that was one example of how trade is supposed to happen, but it doesn't always happen like that. And now I'm going to move on to typical scams that are happening right now, so that you are aware of them. A typical scam, it would be called the bait and switch. Basically, you want to buy one item, and the seller is going to show you the item you actually want to buy first. Then they are going to close the trade window, and they are going to open it again. But now it's a different item, and if you're not careful, you will buy an item which is worth a lot less than the one you actually wanted to buy. The idea here is that typically the seller is going to be fumbling around as if they don't really know how to do a trade. They will be apologetic, maybe, something like this. And so that you understand better what happens, I'm going to simulate that with a friend, actually. So that's going to be the next part of the video. You will see how a scam like this could go through. So the scam goes like this. You want to buy more Invictus, you're ready to trade, and you want, let's say, mana and elemental resistances. You put your currency, you mouse over, mana, elemental resistances, everything is fine, and boom, trade cancelled. So you're a bit, you're wondering what happened. The other player is going to be a bit clumsy, like, oops, sorry, maybe whisper you something like this. They do it like if they are a new player, they don't really know how it happens. Maybe you don't check, and oh, wait a minute, rarity of item and max mana. That's not the first item that was showed. So that's how the scam works. They show you an item, and it's almost the same. Now you can basically report the player and just leave the party, go back to your hideout. So, as we've seen, this kind of scam can happen with Moria Invictus, but it can also happen with other items, typically items that have specific mods that are going to change. Because as we see here, I could have attributes and spirit, and on this one I could have rarity and mana. So that's where the bait and switch can happen. Another kind of item which is like this would be a timeless jewel, for example. You will just see a greenish jewel like this. If it has the same number of lines, for example, it can be very easy to be tricked. You think you're buying something and you're buying something else. It could also happen with the unique jewel called Against the Darkness. This one is also the same. It will have like small passive skills, notable passive skills. So it's going to be all kind of there are all kind of combinations, and you need to double check that you get the right one. For other unique jewels, it can be the case again. Like Megalomaniac will give you 2 notable or 2 keystones, and basically you need to check that you get the one you want, and so on and so forth. I think Megalomaniac is 2 notables. Another one, for example, is Atsiri. Atsiri, here, the corruption can give you various stuff, and maybe you want one. Okay, it's going to be a cheaper item now, but at the beginning of the league it was not the case. You want to go over the maximum of here, the 30% maximum of maximum life as extra maximum energy shield. It was here with corruption I went up to 31%. So that's why this item can be interesting for somebody. So maybe they want to switch it to another corrupted one which has 26 or even 24% the second time around. So that's another thing to be aware of. A completely different type of scam revolves around stellar amulets, because as you probably know, stellar amulets are used in combination with an orb of chance to try to get Astra Mantis, which is a very rare, unique item, very valuable. In order to use an orb of chance, you need a normal item, a white item. So that's why a white stellar amulet right now is worth, I don't know how much, maybe 180 exalted orbs or something like this. So what people will try to do is this. You see this one, you look at it, it's an amulet, it requires level 24 plus 6 to all attributes, which is the implicit, and you see it has no other mods. So you think, okay, that's a white one, but actually it's not. If you look carefully, it's a blue one. How did they do this? Well, there are several ways. You can manipulate, for example, stuff with the expedition vendors to get a blue item without any mods. Otherwise, you can also take a blue item with only 1 mod, for example, or even 2 mods actually, and use an orb of annulment to remove a modifier. So what I did here, for example, I took a stellar amulet which was already blue, which had 1 modifier. I used an orb of annulment, and it looks like this. If you're too quick, basically, if it feels too good to be true, because I have to say scams are also sometimes, greed is a very large factor in this as well. If you see, for example, this for sale at 100 exalt or 50 exalt, you might be thinking, all right, it's a great deal, I have to jump on it, and actually you're being scammed because you just look quickly and you don't realize it's blue. Typically you will actually realize it's blue, but what people might do as well is they say they have 5 or 10 for sale, and some of them are white and some of them are not white. And as you browse like a mouse over all of them, you might not notice that one of them is blue. So that's going to be, and of course this is worth nothing basically. So that's you can't do anything with that, and there's no orb right now to revert it back to normal rarity. So it's really worth nothing. One thing as well is that, as we have seen before, when you trade, you exchange currency. So you need to be sure that you are getting the right kind of currency and the right amount of currency. Sadly, in PoE 2, we don't have a system that is currently in PoE 1, which allows you to, just by pressing a key on your keyboard, you can see immediately how many orbs are in total. So that's really good to prevent this kind of scam. But otherwise, you need to be careful, because especially if you're not really used to the game, all these orbs look a bit alike, So, for example, you might be offered regular orbs instead of divine orbs, and that's not really the same value, okay? Stuff like that. So you need to be careful about this. You could have also, especially if you have larger deals, like over 100 exalts, for example, you need to be careful of how many exalts you're receiving, how many stacks. So you need to know that there are in stacks of 20. Need to be able to count a little bit. So when you're used to it, it's really quick, and there's no issue really. But if you are discovering the game, it can be easy for that to be manipulated a little bit. Either you get the wrong kind of orb, or maybe some stacks are not, you have only stacks of 10 instead of 20, or there's a stack of 1 in the middle and you're not careful enough. So don't rush a trade, I would say. There's no point in going too fast anyway. It's not like, it's just 2, 3, 5 seconds to double check, be sure. And if the person on the other side gets angry about that, well, it's their problem really. But you should be sure of what you are doing. Okay, so that's really important. So that's typically more when you sell an item than when you buy an item. In this case, that the other person can change the currency, for example. Another kind of scam now deals with control metamorphosis. I don't know if you can really call it a scam, but it's definitely taking advantage of new players and maybe their lack of knowledge of how the items and the game really works. I'll give you an example. Here, this unique jewel is very specific, because usually what you have is that you have a radius here and it's fixed, like medium, small, large, and so on. Because it's part of the base, it cannot be modified by corruption. So the radius will not be modified by corruption. The issue is that on this specific unique jewel, you have one line here that defines the size of the radius, okay? Like only affects passives in medial small ring, okay? What can happen when you corrupt it is that this line can disappear, which will make also this line disappear, and the item has no radius, so it's actually completely useless. It will not do anything because it has no radius. I will give you an example. Scrolling up, it looks like this. So here you're like, oh, passive in radius can be allocated without being connected to your tree. Great. You look at the, okay, you get some drawbacks. Cool, I'm going to buy this one, except as a new player, maybe you didn't realize it has no radius, so this line does absolutely nothing. So the only thing that this item does is lower your elemental resistances and chaos resistance. So you need to be really wary of that as well. There's a lot about Path of Exile, which is, I would say, fine print. You need to be really careful. Everything is there for a reason, and if something is missing, well, you need to really think about it, I would say. Thanks again for watching the video. I hope you learned something today and that it will make trade safer for you. If you've liked this content, please consider subscribing to my channel. It will help me develop the channel and continue to offer some nice videos like this. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.